The Paris Olympics, they're expected to be wrapped up under $10 billion. This will probably be the cheapest Olympics Games ever. The Indian contingent is as strong as 117 members this time. And the question on everyone's mind is this: whether this year's tally that India is going to come back with is going to lay a solid ground to host the 2036 Olympics. What are these chances like? Let's discuss this. Dr. Sumanth C Raman is a sports journalist. He's joining us along with Chandrasekar Mantha. He's a partner for media and entertainment sector at Deloitte India. Great to have you both, gentlemen, and thank you for making the time to participate in this discussion about the possibility of India hosting the 2036 Olympics. Mr. Mantha, it was in October last year that the Prime Minister formally threw India's hat in the ring to host the Olympics at the International Olympics Committee meet that took place in Mumbai. The question that we are asking today are two-pronged. A, whether the cost of hosting the Olympics is something that India can afford, and B, is it worth spending on if we can afford it indeed? But first, on the affordability, what's your take? Because cost overruns are the notorious norm for Olympic hosts. If you look at it historically, Canada and Greece are stark examples of how such an extravaganza can throw an economy out of whack. So on affordability, are you for India hosting the Olympics or are you against it?
So thanks for having me, Vikram, on the show. I'm fully on and fully supporting this whole initiative from the government for looking at 2036 for hosting the Olympics. So it's and we have to see this in context. It's just not the spend. It's also the positioning that it gives for the country. It's the diplomatic relationships it helps us build. It's also the kind of economic boost it generates, and it's also important for the entire sports ecosystem, which will benefit from this entire event. So I'm fully supportive of us hosting Olympics in 2036.
Mr. Raman, now the Olympics Committee doesn't require new permanent venues. They don't require events to be held outside the host city. These are the new norms. They do endorse sustainability, even that the Games should be economically sustainable. But has that approach helped in bringing down costs? Right now, we were just talking about Paris Olympics being the cheapest ever. But does India bring that kind of sports infrastructure building capacity and capability to the table that would support the bid to host the Games in 2036? What do you think?
Look, if you ask me, does India have the capability to create that infrastructure? Absolutely, yes. We do have the capability to create that infrastructure. 2036 is a long, long way away. But the point really is also the fact that it is not going to be prohibitively expensive, because going forward, the basic requirements of high quality sport are pretty much going to be covered in infrastructure, in stadia, and so on. So if you take before, for instance, the Asian Games, which were held long, long ago in India, or after that, the South Asian Federation Games and so on, the infrastructure was quite pathetic. And for instance, there was a point of time when India had 2 or 3 artificial turfs for hockey. Now there are 3 in several towns have more than 3 or 4 such artificial turf venues. So I think that you have to understand that we've come a long way. Is it possible for us to host the Olympics? Most certainly, yes. Is it possible to do it in a cost effective manner? Again, the answer is yes. But the real challenges would be to overcome the bureaucracy and the red tape. We don't really need to build. The bulk of the cost in most of the Olympic Games is in the creation of these venues. And that can be significantly saved if there is adequate planning done from now on, where stadia are created. You take the Paris Olympic Games, largely they are using existing venues, whether it is the Stade de France or all the other venues that they're using. Football, they're using a whole lot of the existing football stadiums where the League One matches are being held. So I think that if we do our planning right, it's certainly possible. And I think it's desirable also. It will give a huge fillip to sports in this country.
It gives a fillip to sports, and both of you are endorsing the possibility and that India should persist on that bid for the 2036 Olympics. But when you look at what India brings to the table, there are these several infrastructure projects that we've taken on, Mr. Mantha. We do have cost overruns in India. Yeah, about 25% overrun over the original cost. We've seen a lot of that in center-driven infrastructure projects in recent times, but that still seems okay if you compare it to overruns that we've seen in Olympics hosted by other nations in the past. But at this stage, India's economy, where our per capita GDP is less than $2,500, the real question is, can we have such an extravaganza, or is it a risk that can push us back from our target to become the third largest global economy by 2027? Does that get compromised if you do the cost-benefit analysis? Mr. Mantha.
So Vikram, I think there is enough time between now and 2036, right? We are talking effectively 12 years, and there are a few things that we will have to get done. If you were to host it right. And look, I mean, we've shown the world in the past how things can be done economically, right? I won't be surprised if we do that for Olympics as well. And I fully believe that we have the ability to host it economically, make it viable and self-sustainable. So we could pretty much break even or even make money out of Olympics if we do it right. So I'm fully hopeful. We need to do things around how to manage those costs, how to build the infrastructure that is required. How do we kind of gear up towards 2036? And I'm sure the economy will be in much better shape by then, to kind of back that whole decision around hosting the Olympics.
Even as we consider the possibility of cost overruns, there is a lot of talk of long-term benefits. Mr. Raman, you did mention on the sporting front, as far as India is concerned, and I'll come to that in a moment as well. But if you look at the larger picture, when you talk about trade possibilities, whether you talk about tourism and all of that, getting a big fillip that the economy at this stage may require, should have. And we're not talking about at this stage, because we're talking about 2036, which is still some distance away, like you correctly point out. How do you see these benefits really pan out if India does end up hosting the Olympics in 2036?
Look, I think that there could be very significant benefits, and it's not just from the tourism aspect alone. I'm thinking of what long-term impact it could have for sport and sports persons in the country. Now, there are two things to it. Now, the Olympic movement currently does have a host city, but it allows the host city to stage events in other cities as well. And in India, let me give you a little example. Odisha, for instance, has staged the Champions Trophy hockey. It's staged the World Cup hockey tournament as well. So it's a venue which has staged the highest, level of sport in hockey. Chennai, for instance, has staged the World Squash Championship. So what I'm trying to get at is there have been different venues that have already staged events at the highest level of sport. The Badminton World Cup has been staged earlier here. We've also had, a variety of different Olympic disciplines. The Davis Cup has been played in India. So I think that you have to understand that at the highest level, there are enough and more venues which have already done the job. And of course, 2036 is a long way off. We need to upgrade them. We need to renovate them, but they're not hugely going to be, the cost may not be huge. The point is, what kind of impact does it do? See, India today is slowly sort of moving away from cricket. I know cricket is from number 1 to number 90, but earlier it was probably from 1 to 99. Now it has only from 1 to 90, and other sports have also started to make a mark. So I think that we need to move beyond being a one sport nation. And I think over the last 10, 15 years, we've started to make an impact at the Olympic Games. Last 3, 4 Olympic Games, ever since Abhinav Bindra, we started to make an impact. And I'm sure that this Olympics, we're going to do even better. So I think that it will do a tremendous amount of good for Indian sports persons. I'm not just looking at the revenue coming in from tourism,
Yes.
and so on, which is a short-lived kind of affair.
Right.
But I'm looking long term, and that is in fact, to me, that is a more important reason to stage the Olympics rather than just the revenue that you may get in the near term.
So you're saying that we need to look beyond cricket, and something that is of a big ask right now, and I'll go across to Mr. Mantha about this in a moment as well. But To just persist on this point, Mr. Raman, India will be looking at, improving our previous medal tally. 7. That was our last tally. Our best athletes are competing in Paris. Javelin champion Neeraj Chopra there. So is boxer Lavlina Borgohain. We've sent 117 athletes to participate in 16 of the competition's 32 sports this time. Tell me, what do you think are the expectations? How do you expect India to fare this time around at the Olympics? Mr. Raman.
Yeah, I expect an above average performance. Now, there are two things. One is the shooting contingent, which was a disaster at Tokyo. I think that they are the ones for whom this is the time that they have to make up for what happened 4 years ago or 3 years ago. It's time for them to step up. People like Manu Bakar and others who had a horrid time in the last Olympics, and they were heavily favored to do well there, and that did not happen. So one is looking to a set like that. Athletics, where India traditionally would not, even feature. Obviously, we've got Neeraj Chopra, but there's more than Neeraj Chopra. We do have contenders in the women's javelin throws, Anurani. We have the 4x400 meter relay team who are only 3 seconds off the world record in the 4x400 meters relay, which maybe even 10 years ago would have been unthinkable. So, of course, badminton, we have PV Sindhu, who's again going to be extremely competitive. We have Nikat Zareen along with Lavlina Borgohain. Nikat Zareen in the 50 kg, she's got a fighting chance. And there are the hockey team. In fact, I was speaking to a couple of, in fact, including Mr. Bhaskaran, the last Indian captain to win the gold medal at the Moscow Olympics for India, and he was telling me that he expects a podium finish. He's not going as far as saying that there's going to be a gold medal or a silver, but he says that he expects at least a bronze for India, like we got in at Tokyo. So I think that there could be Aditi Ashok in golf. She, sort of flamed out on the last day when she was almost certain to win a medal last time. So she's in with a chance. So I think that there are multiple options for India, but I really would have an eye on the shooting contingent because they really were a letdown last time. Also, the badminton in doubles, Chirag and Reddy. So I think that they are another team that could, pull off a surprise. So I would not be surprised with more or less a repeat of what happened in Tokyo.
More or less a repeat of what happened in Tokyo, but the idea is to improve our tally. And you said that this should be a better performance than we've seen, an above average performance. How important is it, Mr. Mantha, to raise our medal tally as a host nation, to earn the respect of the international sporting community as a host of the Games? It could be in 2036, but the kind of growth that we've seen in sports beyond cricket in our country, does that trajectory of growth suggest that we will be at a pivot point? Mr. Mantha.
Well, I think we should. I mean, today, if you look at 87, 90%, as Doctor mentioned, is coming from cricket. But having said that, there's only non-cricketing sports are only to gain their share over the next few years. So it's important that we win a lot, better our performance from previous Olympics, possibly double the tally of medals, and then show the world, or as well as our own sports ecosystem, that we are capable of winning. We're capable of winning other than cricket as well, and that kind of boosts the entire ecosystem. That kind of gives courage for newer sportsmen to kind of give it all and go all out on their sport. So that is very important. So winning outside cricket is, and Olympics is especially, is very, very important, because that kind of gears us up for what we are set out to do in 2036.
Some of the biggest tournaments that we've held are to do with the game of cricket, Mr. Mantha. But taking it beyond, there would be lessons from that. And of course, we've had experience in Asian Games, in Commonwealth Games. How much of that is going to be useful, if at all, we do get and win the bid for 2036 Olympics?
We are competing with a lot of other countries for winning that bid. Having said that, over the next 12 years, and as you rightly mentioned, we've hosted some of the other games, and we know what is the ecosystem or the infrastructure that is required for hosting those games. We have to scale up. We have to extrapolate that to kind of host something like an Olympic, which is the biggest event on the earth. So, in terms of scaling up of the infrastructure, we should actually map out our roadmap from now on till 2036 to ensure that most of it is in place by the time we get there. If you even look at the Paris Olympics, there were only 3 venues that had to be made, and majority of it was already in place. So if we can learn from the previous Olympics, if we can learn from the next few Olympics that are going to happen between now and then, we should plan our roadmap accordingly and have everything in place by the time we get there. So it's important. It's important to have that carved out.
Well, we hope so. But if I were to ask you, and very quickly at that, Mr. Raman, from a scale of 1 to 10, what are India's chances? 10 being that we do win the bid for the 2036 Olympics. Where do you rate it right now?
A lot depends on the government of the day at the time the bid is actually being finalized, right? So it's not easy to sort of predict how focused the government would be, because without government support, 150%, there's no way that any of the bids are going through. So it really depends on to what extent India is keen. But look, the International Olympic Committee would be very happy to give the games to India, because we haven't held the Olympic Games. So therefore, it's also India is seen as an emerging power, soon to be the third largest economy in the world. So I'm sure that we will be in a position to host the games and win the bid quite comfortably. But, and I say this is the big but, it depends on the priority of the government and the importance that the government of the day at the time the bid is being made. We've seen
Right.
many countries losing the Olympic Games because there was one government
Yes.
which was interested, the government changed, and the next government at the time of the bid didn't show much interest. So
Sure, yes.
anything could happen.
Right.
But I think if the government is very keen, we will have, on a scale of 1 to 10, I would say 7.
7 is quite high, even at this stage. And of course, like you said, 2036 is still quite a long way off. We will keep tracking developments and the trajectory of growth in the economy as well. That would support an Olympic bid that would be of the size that the largest sporting extravaganza of the world would merit. But thanks indeed, Mr. Raman, Mr. Mantha, for joining us with your perspective on this issue here on India Tonight.
If you like this video, then like, share and subscribe to ET Now.